What's up, Earthrockers? It's your boy Shovatar here, back again. This time, I've got a real no-hit run for you, an actual single-segment no-hit run. No, oh, I didn't want to put in the time, no, oh, you know, whatever. This is single-segment no-hit, Belmont's Revenge. The reason that I decided to do to go for this with Belmont's Revenge is that even though Belmont's Revenge, is kind of a long game, although it's only as long as it is because of the low movement speed, which I'll talk about. It's also way, way easier than Dracula's Curse by like several orders of magnitude, so so this felt much more like attainable than a Dracula's Curse single segment no damage did, and that turned out to be correct. I don't remember how long this took me exactly, but I think I only had a couple of runs that got deep and then I fucked up on. Something that I want to talk about first, before I talk about the game generally, is I want to talk about the order in which I'm doing these levels, because the way Belmont's Revenge is structured, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is there's 4 castle levels, and then there's 2 levels that take place, or there's 4 like palace levels, and then there's 2 levels that take place inside Dracula's castle, and then the Dracula fight at the end. And you could do the first 4 levels in any order. The reason I decided to do this level first is because number one, this level is pretty difficult. I would say it's the second hardest in the context of... Sorry, my window's open. I'd say it's the second hardest in the context of a no-hit run. But of all 4 of the palace levels, it's the only one where I don't want the axe before it's available. And that brings me to why I'm playing the Game Boy version and not the Game Boy Color version. Because there are about 1 million different ROM hacks. Well, not 1 million. There's like half a dozen different ROM hacks of Belmont's Revenge, but none of them do what I really wanted, which was to put hack the axe into the GBC version. Because I discovered that shortcut there by accident, by the way. I just want to point that out real quick. And after I did, I was frantic looking for shortcuts anywhere else in the game, but as far as I know, that's the only place in the whole game that's like that. The Game Boy Color version is part of a Konami Game Boy Color collection that was only released in Europe. And in Europe and Japan, the 2 sub-weapons in Belmont's Revenge are the Holy Water and the Cross. In the American version, it's the Holy Water and the Axe. And a lot of people say that the Cross in Belmont's Revenge is overpowered, and I think that's true, because it's very large. If you watch my my Game Boy Color Belmont's Revenge footage that I have way back earlier on my channel, you can see how strong the cross is, but the thing is that in the context of a no-hit run, like the trickiest sections of the whole game, like the ones where it's hardest to avoid taking damage, are solved a lot better with the axe than with the cross. The point that I only really wanted to try to go for a no-hit if it was on the American Game Boy version. So apologies for the black and white footage. Maybe somewhere out there's like a ROM hack that can apply the Game Boy Color colorization to the non-Game Boy Color version of the game. I couldn't find it, so this is just what we're left with. I think I've covered the basics. Yeah, I would say actually that in the context of a no-hit run, the Earth Temple, or the Plant Temple or whatever, is harder than the Rock Temple, but I want the axe right from the start of the Plant Temple, so and the axe in the Plant Temple isn't available until like after I really want it, so it just made the most sense to do the Rock Castle first, because it's pretty difficult, and also it gives me the axe before I need it, and none of the other ones do that. I guess actually I could, well, no, I think that's true. I'll wait until later in the run to see if that's 100% true, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Anyway, so one of the things that makes the Rock Castle hard, or one of the things that I was worried about, was this boss right here, because one of the consequences of the low movement speed in Belmont's Revenge is that this guy is pretty hard to not take damage on. The trick is to just abuse these ropes in exactly the way that I'm doing, but that's not necessarily intuitive. Like, it's not immediately clear, or at least it wasn't when I played this game the first time, like why these ropes are in the boss arena and how they're supposed to help you. And the answer is they're supposed to let you avoid the big chicken man. So that's what's going on there. Sorry, hang on a sec. Sorry, I've been having technical difficulties. I just wanted to make sure that the cord connecting my microphone was where it was supposed to be. Anyway, so Belmont's Revenge. I fucking love Belmont's Revenge. I really, really like this game. And a lot of people, I think, do not. I think there's a general consensus that it's the best of the games that were released, best of the Castlevania games that were released for the original Game Boy, but there's not very stiff competition there, because the other two games are Castlevania The Adventure, which is the worst game I've ever played, and Castlevania Legends, which is just, like, flat-out boring. So people acknowledging that Belmont's Revenge is the best of the original Game Boy Castlevanias isn't necessarily an endorsement, it's just kind of a fact. But even if you don't compare Belmont's Revenge to just the other Game Boy Castlevania games, I think it's still really good. Like, I really enjoy it. Which I thought I wouldn't, because the movement speed does make the game take a lot longer, but I'm kind of resistant to the idea of using movement speed ROM hacks for Belmont's Revenge, which is like another ROM hack that exists that people usually that sometimes people recommend. My issue with that is that I think that it's very clear that the game is designed around the slow movement speed, and there's a couple of specific examples of that in this level, actually, that I'll try to remember to point out when they show up. Yeah, this is the example of the kind of thing the axe really simplifies, because the bats in Belmont's Revenge actually are really tricky. Their movements, I don't entirely understand what makes them behave in the way that they do, but they're very annoying. And this right here is the part that I wanted the axe for at the start of the Forest Temple. It's very hard to deal with that first bone thrower, in my experience, without the axe, because I mean, maybe there's a way to dodge that first bone. I don't know what that would be, because I feel like you're stuck on the rope. And if you go too far down and then go back up again, you'll respawn him, which I'm about to demonstrate here on this guy. You pretty much always have to fight this guy more than once, because when you first, like, trigger his spawn when you go up, you usually want to kill him before you keep going up the rest of the steps, so to speak. But then in the process of going up, you're going to spawn him again, and sometimes you can get caught in this loop where, like, you summon him, you hit his spawn trigger when you jump, and then when you fall back down and then jump again, you trigger the spawn again. That is really the only place in Belmont's Revenge where that function is a problem. That's an issue way more often in Castlevania Legends. But here it's really just this one part of this one level where it's an issue, and that's why I think this is the hardest of the four, temple, palace, whatever, 4 initial levels in Belmont's Revenge in terms of a no-hit run. There are a couple of specific things in the Rock Temple that I didn't get to talk about, but I think really the strategies or the methodologies is pretty clear just from the footage. This was a decision that I just made purely for the sake of time, where I think it would be technically safer to kill these eyes and then, actually, no, probably not, because taking your chances in the, like, grippy weeds that slow you down when there's mudmen walking around, that can also be, pretty dangerous. So neither destroying the eyes and then falling through the hole, or jumping over the eyes is, like, perfectly consistent in the way that I wanted, but jumping over them was the faster one, and ultimately I was just, like, you know, it was consistent enough. So to talk about what I like about Belmont's Revenge is that, you know, the slow movement speed is an issue, but Belmont's Revenge just, like, it doesn't have any big problems. I think it looks great. I think it looks a lot better in the Game Boy Color version, admittedly. And the levels are really distinct. Like, the first 4 like, palace levels are all really distinct from each other, and they're also unique sort of in the context of Castlevania, the kinds of enemies you fight and, like, the bosses you fight, too. Like, all of the bosses in Belmont's Revenge, up until the end of the game, are basically never, like, replicated in later games, and that fall right there is an example of why the movement speed is The slow movement speed is like part of the level design of the game, because if I was walking off of that ledge any faster, then I would bonk my head on the side of those spikes, but if you walk off of the ledge at the default movement speed, you just avoid them. So this second boss is actually is trickiest out of all of them to no-hit, in my opinion. Or of the initial 4 bosses anyway. Just because, like, sometimes the game is really picky about, like, when you have and haven't destroyed the 3 little fireballs that the statues shoot, and also because you're just stuck on this tiny platform, so the options that you have for positioning yourself to either destroy the fireballs or try to avoid them are just very limited. There it worked out. The axe is also really helpful there. The axe and the cross kind of both shit on this boss in different ways. Where with the axe, it's, in my opinion, better, like, intercepting tricky, fireball angles. And then it's also pretty good at just hitting them when you can't hit them with your whip. But the cross, though, because it goes back and forth across the screen, can really, like, burn down their health really quickly. So because Belmont's Revenge doesn't really do anything horribly wrong, or at least nothing that I can't, like, work around, which I'll talk about what I mean by that a little bit more later, because it involves the last 2 levels of the game. And because it's just, I don't know, it's just fun. Like, a big component of what makes Belmont's Revenge good, however, is the soundtrack. This is, like, the best soundtrack for a Game Boy game I've, like, ever heard. Admittedly, I haven't heard that many. As I said in the past, I'm basically, I'm like a hair's breadth from being a Zoomer, so, and I grew up on, like, you know, mostly the GBA, so, original Game Boy games I don't have much experience with, but the soundtrack in this game is just fucking killer. And it really goes a long way towards making the game fun. I guess I should also just clarify this is on normal mode. Belmont's Revenge has a normal mode and a hard mode, but they're basically identical. So, especially in the context of a no-hit run, I think they're literally identical, because in hard mode the only difference is that some enemies take away your whip power-up if they hit you. Which, if you're wondering what that fireball coming out of the whip is, that's what it is. It's, instead of, like, the way that it is in C1 and C3, where you start off with, like, leather whip, and then, like, short-range chain whip and then long-range chain whip. In Belmont's Revenge, it goes from leather whip to chain whip that shoots a fireball out of it. Which is another reason why the axe is like, better than the cross, in my opinion, generally, is because if all you want is to just hit things that are far away from you horizontally, a fully upgraded whip accomplishes that. The axe hits things diagonally, and hits things at angles that the other sub-weapons can't. I'll talk a little bit about the Sky Castle, or the Sky Palace, or the Cloud Castle, or whatever this thing is called. This is probably my least favorite of the 4 initial levels, because it has a lot of, like, tricky environmental hazards, which I don't find very interesting, and I'm also not very good at. So, good soundtrack though, good music. That really kind of helps Belmont's Revenge a lot, like I said before. These guys make a return appearance in the Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth, I think, although they're in a slightly different form. Yeah, these are the things that I'm bad at. These, like, where you have to, like, react really quickly to them changing direction, and you have to, like, think spatially, like, use your spatial awareness and your, like, physical, logical brain to conclude, oh, if I stay at this point on the ropes and then they change direction, I'm gonna hit, like, the rotating blades. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, I know what to do. I'm just bad at doing it. This is the perfect example, by the way, of a room that is about 100 times more of a bigger pain in the ass to clear with the cross than it is with the axe. With the cross, you have to, like, clear out the balls, and then, like, try to quickly scamper up the rope, and then, like, hope it all just works out. With the axe, you can just stand in a position of complete safety and kill the turret, and then just go from there. So, actually, me doing a no-hit run with the axe is sort of like the easy version of a Belmont's Revenge no-hit, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe there's, like, a particular, timing. I mean, I'm sure there is a particular timing and a particular, like, pattern that the balls can get shot out in that you can clear those rooms without that room without even using a sub-weapon, probably, but, I couldn't figure it out, because I did try to do no-hits. I did try for a no-hit on the GBC version, first, and it just wasn't working out, and I just kept on thinking, like, wow, all these things that keep on fucking me up would really be a lot easier if I had the axe, so... I guess if nothing else, it adds some, makes the footage of Belmont's Revenge on my channel more holistic, because now I have footage of both the original Game Boy version and the GBC version. This boss was actually, speaking of no-hit difficulties, this boss was actually kind of tricky to learn in terms of no-hit, because it is like a very... It's kind of like the bird, the big armored chicken from the Rock Castle, in that it's a very, like, specific back-and-forth positioning dance you have to do to, like, avoid the fireballs, or, like, be ready to intercept the fireballs, and then also be ready to not get hit by the metal, blades flying around, and that's another boss where the axe, comes in handy. Sorry, I saw a bee flying around outside, so I shut my window. Where the axe comes in handy, because it'll hit both of those heads sometimes and rack up, 2 hits instead of just 1. Although I guess you could probably do that with cross too. I don't really know. Man, listen to this fucking song. When I first, like, played Belmont's Revenge, the Crystal Castle was the first level I went to, because I'm a Westerner, and it was on the top left, which means to me that's the first one. And when I first got into this level, and, like, I heard this fucking music playing, I was like, this game is fucking sick. Like... It was such a smart idea for them to put the best track in the game on this level, which a lot of people would probably end up playing first just because it's in the top left. And it's the easiest of the 4 levels, which is why I'm saving it for last. I mean, I can't say enough good things about the soundtrack in Belmont's Revenge. One of the best soundtracks in the entire series. I almost don't even want to talk, I want to just sit here and listen to the fucking music, but it's supposed to be a commentary. And I also don't have much to say about the Crystal Castle because it's so simple. Although there actually are going to be a couple of tricky things coming up towards the very end, which I'll point out. I think there are other one-ups hidden in Belmont's Revenge, but that's the only one that I remembered location-wise. That's a pretty cool use of the axe, although that's not really necessary. You can just whip the first one, and then keep going. So this is funny, because I actually lost a couple of runs to this part specifically, because I just kind of underestimated how fast, like, the spikes would come back in, or I guess I overestimated, like, my window of safety, and that was very surprising, because I thought I had that part down pat from when I first played the game, but I apparently did not. I should mention with the Crystal Castle that there is an alternate path you can take if you go up on that rope instead of going down, but my memory of it from when I first played this game is that it's a lot riskier, and I didn't see any obvious benefit to taking it. That little move right there, going down that rope super fast to avoid that turret, that's the tricky thing that I was talking about, because if you stay on the rope to kill the turret, which seems safer, First of all, those balls that he shoots out that bounce around have this weird habit of just avoiding all of your whip shots and then like barely clipping you on that rope. And then going down from the rope into the like stream of water or whatever where the submerged monster is just an extra like thing that can go wrong. So the best strategy I discovered is just to zoom down that rope as quickly as possible and just get out of there. That little like area where you're next to the turret and then below you is the fish man that's about to spawn. Sorry guys, my microphone fucked up in the middle of this recording, and I didn't realize that it was fucking up until I got into the post-recording stages. Usually I can catch it because the live sound playback starts looking weird, but I guess I didn't see it here until it was too late, so I'm very, very sorry about that. All I basically said here was that the boss is easy, and I just run away from him on a certain timing, and it all just works out. Sorry. This guy's purple in the Game Boy Color version, by the way. Nice and simple. Look at how much time I had left. Okay, so that's the first half of the game finished, pretty much. The first half in terms of the raw runtime, not the first half in terms of the actual gameplay time, because the credits in Belmont's Revenge take a very long time, which I don't remember if I already said or not. I love this part. I love the way Dracula's castle comes out of the water. I love this game, man. There's so many things that Belmont's Revenge just does right. And very few things that it does wrong, in my view. There are a couple of big problems towards the very end, so if some of you have played this game and you've been going crazy hearing me give it all this praise, I'm getting to that. I'm getting to the things that I think you're probably upset about, but most of them come at the very end. It's not even this. It's not this first Dracula level. I think this first Dracula level is actually really good. Really good soundtrack too, or really good song to go with it. I never quite figured out what the deal was with these statues in the background. Like, I don't know what's going on with their heads exactly. But this level, the two Dracula levels were the two levels that I probably practiced more than any other for this run. Partially because they're at the end, and partially because they are when these guys start to show up. These guys are the most dangerous enemy in a conventional Belmont's Revenge run, because they actually do a lot of damage, which most enemies in Belmont's Revenge don't. But in the context of a no-hit run, they're also really dangerous just because their attack comes pretty fast and is kind of hard to dodge. Especially if they throw low like that, because if they throw high, you can just duck under the first swing and then just like jump over the scythe when it comes back around, but if they throw low, you have to time a jump right away. And I found that jumping forward seemed to make it easier to dodge, but then you also have to make sure you've left yourself enough room to jump forward so that you don't jump into the guy when you do that. So that's why those guys are scary, and why I was constantly nervous about. That was the thing that made me the most nervous about doing a no-hit Belmont's Revenge run, were those scythe guys. This room, you can do it fast or slow. I did the fast way of doing it. You just kind of have to make sure you kill that bat right at the start when you come in. And here was actually one scythe guy that I was able to cheese. If you stay right towards the bottom of the screen and you have the fireball whip, then you'll be too far down for the scythe to ever hit. And you can just kill him from a position of safety. And like, that might seem minor, but I think there's like 5 or 6 of those scythe guys in the whole run, and being able to guarantee kill one of them without taking damage is just like, makes the odds that much better. That part with the big bats was also kind of tricky. Just because I don't like the small bats, I don't really understand how the big bats move a lot of the time. I feel like it might have something to do with like whether you're above or below them, or whether you're like I don't know. I never figured it out. So those enemies were always kind of scary to me. Here I go down to the left just because it's easier to, like, you can take your time killing that second bone thrower more, because if you go down to the right, then you kind of have to kill him right away, like as soon as you see him, or else he'll jump towards you and throw a bone at an angle that is more difficult to avoid. This room is pretty tricky, just because you have to, like, plan out your positioning for falling onto a platform, which is something that doesn't often happen in these games. The control in Belmont's Revenge is slightly less restrictive than it is in C1 or C3. It feels more restrictive because you're moving so slowly, but you can actually like change. You can actually, like, you kind of maintain some momentum when you walk off of cliff or walk off of the edge of platforms in Belmont's Revenge. In C1 and C3 and Chronicles, you just drop straight down. So there is a little bit of a difference. This room is also kind of scary, but again, the axe makes it a lot easier just because you can hit them while they're below you and also clear out any of those round ball projectiles coming at you at weird angles. So this boss was another one I was really worried about, because this boss is not that hard to kill if you, like, know what you're doing, but trying to no damage it means you have to kill it really fast, because it's a big worm monster. It's going to come in and out of the top and the bottom of the screen, and if you let the fight go on for too long, then there's a certain point in time where you have to execute a really specifically timed jump in order to avoid taking damage from him. And it's, like, really, really particular. So the secret is to kill him before you have to do that point, which is right there. Right where I killed him, like, you either have to kill him there, or if you can't kill him there, you have to do a really, really tight jump to get over him and get to the other side. And if you don't, then you're going to take damage. So the trick, or the challenge there, was just finding spots where I could get as many hits in as possible, and that involved taking advantage of the axe to hit him from far away. So that was just, like, really specific. I had a strategy that worked, but executing the strategy was pretty precise. I don't remember if I ever lost a run there. I think I did, probably, but if I did, I think that's the latest I ever lost one. Fortunately, I only had to do this part once, that I can recall. And honestly, this last Dracula level is where I think Belmont's Revenge, that was really scary. having to like, you just have to know the timing. Like, when he's that close to you and he throws the projectile, you have to jump, like, preemptively, and fortunately I've played the game enough that I knew the timing and was able to jump according to it, but that's really scary. This last Dracula level is, I think, where Belmont's Revenge really drops the ball. The level itself, I'm not a big fan of. By the way, this room right here is the one that convinced me that I absolutely had to play on the regular Game Boy version. Because trying to clear this room out with the cross is just so frustrating. Because, like, when you're stuck on a rope, and you can only go up and down, and you can only go up and down slowly, like, the act of dodging one of those, like, projectiles that bounces off of the walls and shit is just, like, you're constantly having to go, like, all the way down and then all the way back up. It's just such a pain in the ass, and the axe makes it so much easier. Here, this is the last place in the run where I'm going to use Holy Water, and it's very fortunate that they give you the Holy Water right before this point, because this is the second of the scythe guys that I can kill without risk. And I go with the Holy Water instead of the axe, because the Holy Water, it just takes fewer Holy Water throws to kill that guy than it does axe throws. You just have to make sure that the fire actually hits him. I don't like this part either. I don't like anything in these games that makes you wait for a long time. Like, Belmont's Revenge is a slow enough game as it is without making you fucking sit and wait for shit. And it's especially frustrating because, like, this is at the very end of the run, so I have to do, like, a bunch of waiting when I'm, like, really nervous and when I know I'm in the home stretch and I'm in that state of mind where I'm like, I gotta make sure I don't fuck up. It's interesting that heart count was actually a bit of an issue for this level, mostly because killing that other... This part is so scary. It's another scythe guy you just have to, like... You just have to know the timing for. Mostly because that scythe guy that I killed with the holy water, if you don't get the timing on the throw right, if the fire doesn't hit him as much as it should, then it can take a lot of holy water throws to kill him. So, like, depending on how that goes, you can end up spending a lot of hearts. Fortunately, I had practiced that a lot, so I kind of knew the timing for when to throw it. Oh, I remember, yeah, I think I did. I think I lost a run here. Just because, like, I'm not good at doing this. I don't know, this is the kind of thing that probably seems like... I don't know how, like, hard this seems, but it's just... I found it was best to just think of the ropes as, like... as if they're not moving at all, and just try to get through it all as, like, quickly as possible. Because the thing that makes it hard is that, like, when they're going down, you want to, like, go up to compensate so you're not getting dragged down into the spikes, but then when they swap directions, now you could end up, like, running into the other set. Like, I forgot, actually, that I did that twice. That was exactly the same thing as last time. Another bad decision in the second Dracula level is right here. This is, like, the weirdest thing in the whole game, and it took me a long time to figure out. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just walk off of the moving platform onto the ledge. Because if you jump there, then your head will hit the spikes and you won't make the jump. And it took me a long time to figure that out when I first played this game, because I was like... I don't know, it just didn't intuitively make sense to me to walk off of a moving platform onto another one. Even though I guess there's no law saying that you can't do that. It's just not like a normal thing for me. So yeah, I don't like... This is the worst level in the game. I think it has a lot of annoying and questionable design decisions, and I think this is the worst song in the whole game. It's boring as fuck. Belmont's Revenge has pretty, like, tougher competition than a lot of other games for the best soundtrack slot, but this is just a dud. This last part is also kind of annoying because you have to, like, go forward to bait the spider, but then, like, go right back again. I don't know. That's what I'm talking about, by the way. About, like, the projectiles just, like, sneaking around your whip. Like, I was right in front of that first turret, just whipping as frequently as I could, and that projectile still somehow managed to, like, get away from me. And if the terrain of that room was different, then, like, it could have bounced back into me. This is the first of the last two boss fights in the game, the two fights that mark the end of the game, and I think this one's pretty cool. I do think that it has the same problem that the Dracula fight does, in that this fight basically boils down to memorization, because the areas of this room that are safe are dependent on what Michael Jackson here is going to do, like which route he's going to take as he walks around the arena, and you don't know what his pattern is until you do the fight enough times to learn it. Like, you don't really have time to react to, like, right here, you don't know at first, if when he reaches the end of that, like a middle platform, if he's gonna jump up or walk down. You just have to, like, do the fight and memorize when he takes what route and then adjust your position accordingly. So that's kind of annoying. It took the Castlevania guys a long time before they made like a doppelganger fight or a doppelganger style fight that wasn't either like a cheese or like an exercise in memorization. Which I think this one is. And to a certain extent, a lot of things in games are just tests of memorization, but this one is especially that's especially the case. But it's a pretty cool fight, conceptually. I guess I didn't even talk about the storyline. Dracula kidnapped Christopher Belmont's son, who's that guy there that you just fought, so I guess that's a unique thing. Ouch. It's the thing about Belmont's Revenge that makes it unique. One of several things, actually. That's part of what I like about so much about it, is that it is really, really distinct from the rest of the rest of the series. I think this is really cool too, this whole ending, not just the music, but also the statues of death in the background, which, interestingly enough, the Grim Reaper is never fought in either Castlevania The Adventure or Castlevania 2 Belmont's Revenge. He just doesn't show up in the Game Boy games. No, he's in Legends, although it's kind of a goofy-looking Grim Reaper. It's not like a normal... Okay, so, the Dracula fight. What I just said about the Solyu fight back there being kind of a test of memorization, I'm like, yeah, you know, one or the other. This is pure fucking memorization. This is purely memorizing what the safe zones are for each of Dracula's, orb attacks from, like, each of the position... Well, the attack is always the same. But the position is different, and you just have to memorize what the safe spots are for each position, and it's kind of... I mean, on the one hand, it doesn't make me mad because it's learnable. That's, like, the thing that pisses me off in these games is literal randomness, when you can't learn something. This, if you learn it, you'll never fuck it up. It's learnable, but it's kind of stupid to me that that's basically all it boils down to. There's a little bit more going on, I guess, in terms of, like... There's a skill level to figuring out how and when to get in the damage that you need to get in. And, like, the cross and the axe. The cross is better at it, the axe is pretty good at it, at, like, getting some shots in on him from a safe distance. Like, if I was using the cross, I think he'd already be dead by now. Or no, if I was trying to no-hit, he'd be dead by now, because in my original run... there were times when I, like, intentionally took damage just to get in a bunch of damage on him and make the fight end faster. That wasn't an option here, of course. So, yeah, I think Belmont's Revenge starts off really strong and fumbles it at the end. But I would still stand by the game as being really good overall despite that. And, was I right? Was it under 40 minutes? Yes, okay. I wasn't going for under 40 minutes, I was just kind of... That was what I thought happened, and it turned out I was right. And 200,000 points, what do you know? I could probably actually max out the score on Belmont's Revenge if I felt like it. Because the game is really generous with extra lives, too. You get, a lot of points and then a lot of point-based extra lives from that. Yeah, and if you're wondering why the game is called Castlevania 2, even though there's a different Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, it's because this is the second Game Boy game. It has to do with the way that the games were titled in Japan, which I can't remember now off the top of my head how that worked. I want to say the first Castlevania game was... I want to say Castlevania The Adventure was like... It was like Dracula Densetsu or something? Because Castlevania is Akumajo Dracula. I don't know. I can't remember. There's some weird reason involving the Japanese titles. Anyway, that's Belmont's Revenge. I mean, I already kind of said everything there is that I wanted to say about the game. I really can't say enough good things about Belmont's Revenge. Like, yes, the movement speed is an issue, and if you really can't stand it, I would actually recommend getting. I mean, then, you know, there's nothing... There are movement speed hacks, if you want them. I would stand by my statement that the game is definitely designed around the original movement speed, but I also, having tried out movement speed hacks in the past, I mean, it's fun. Like, it's always fun to move faster in video games, so if the movement speed is a deal breaker for you, if you can't stand it, you know, no judgment if you get a ROM hack that increases the movement speed. And I would also really recommend playing the Game Boy Color version, because the color does add a lot to it. This is why the credits are so long, by the way, because the text scrolls so fucking slowly. Another funny thing about the Game Boy Color version is that it's, because it's European, for some reason they have like a really fucking weird, wonky English translation. Like, the ending... The dialogue with Solyu, this ending text crawl is all different in the Game Boy Color version, and, like, none of it makes sense. It's all, like, super weird, and, like, some fucking weird translation. And I don't know why they couldn't just use the translation from the US version. Because this one's perfectly fine. I mean, I do think there's an error in the ending text crawl somewhere that I noticed once, but, like, it's extremely minor compared to the word salad that's produced in the GBC European text crawl. Christopher Belmont, man, the most maligned and marginalized of all the Belmonts. In Portrait of Ruin, there's like this big finishing move that the main characters get called Greatest Five, which is meant to summon the greatest 5 Belmonts in the history of the Belmont family, and it's Trevor, Simon, Richter, Juiced, and Leon, and Christopher is just excluded. And I love Juiced Belmont, I love Harmony of Dissonance, but, like, come on, man. Where's my boy Christopher? Oh shit, what is this? Okay, that's weird. Hopefully it doesn't do that again. I wonder if I should I put like a warning on the video? There's like flickering lights. I guess I will. I'll put it in the description, just in case. I don't know why it's doing this. I don't know if this is a consequence of like the recording, or if this is just how it looked on the Game Boy. I don't know. I don't know why it's doing this. I'm talking about the weird ass flickering. I don't know what that's all about. Anyway, yes, Belmont's Revenge. Fun game. Good game. Christopher Belmont had the misfortune of being in Castlevania the Adventure, which is one of the worst games I've ever played, but redeems himself in Belmont's Revenge, which is a very, very good Castlevania game. Thank you for your playing. That was it. And thank you, viewer, for your watching of this video. I've got more stuff coming. I don't want to, like, spoil everything that I've got. And like I said, in the description of some of these videos, I'm not gonna revisit every single game. What the fuck? That's not supposed to happen. Okay. I'm not gonna go back and revisit every game that I played in the past, but it's gonna be a lot of them, so, keep your eyes peeled, and keep on Earth rocking.